So I never got to be a king or a wise man or magi, whatever you call it. I was relegated to roles like shepherd in a bathrobe in the annual pageant. The three kings got fancy costumes like you saw this morning coming down the aisle. They even got fake beards. I had a bathrobe. They were the big finale, entering the scene with their gold crowns and shiny aluminum foil-covered boxes. Everyone awed at how cute they were and what a cute pageant it was. You've been there. You've seen the show. But when the wise men show up in Matthew's gospel, it's anything but cute. It's kind of dark, actually. Outraged tyrants, murder plots, last-minute escapes. Matthew's story doesn't have any angels and shepherds, donkeys, or a sweet little manger scene. These all belong to Luke's story, which is the kinder, gentler gospel. Matthew likes to throw people into the outer darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth a lot. Luke doesn't really go for all that. In many ways, the wise men are an add-on to the story. They often don't even make an appearance on Christmas Eve when we read Luke. But they get their day, Epiphany, and their song and their entrance here, we three kings. But these wise men are more than kings with shiny gold boxes. They aren't even really kings. That's a tradition that gets added on later. They're even more exciting than kings. The word we translate as wise men, wise ones, is from the Greek magi, the root of the English word magician. They're kind of like astrologers. They observe the sky, the stars, the planets, and they interpret them. They read them. They search for meaning. They look for signs, seeking the divine, the movements and activities of the natural world. They're like New Agey scientists. And so the movement of this star pulls them toward Jerusalem, the home of the temple, the beating heart of Israel's ancient faith and worship. They arrive at the palace of Herod the Great, the king of Palestine. He's been appointed by the Romans, a puppet for empire. He has a reputation for ruthlessness, having murdered the rival family to the throne and often his own family to keep power. These magi arrive at the palace and tell Herod about the star that they followed there. And they come searching, sharing their analysis of the data. Where is the child, they ask, born king of the Jews? We've been watching the sky and we followed the star here. We've come to pay our respects. They have no idea where to go. They were drawn there by the star, but there's something missing. They can't quite figure it out. Now, Herod is freaked out, it says. The whole city is terrified with him. They're probably scared because when a crazy tyrant is afraid, they often act recklessly and dangerously. I'd be scared too. The wise men tell him that a new king has been born. But Herod's already the king. Do you see the problem there? Herod and the whole city are terrified because there's a new king in town, and the current king likes to kill anyone who's a threat to their power. In fact, after this point in the story, Herod is never referred to as a king again because there's a new king in town. Herod's time has come. He doesn't know what to do, so he gathers the kingdom's top political advisors and spiritual gurus all together. And he asks, where is the Messiah supposed to show up? They search their Bibles, cobbling a few verses together, and they come up with Bethlehem. Bethlehem, the city of David, Israel's most renowned king. This is where the new king, the promised one, is supposed to be born. So Herod calls the Magi back, and he sends them to Bethlehem to get the location of the baby so he can pay his own respects. But it's all a trick. Herod plans to kill the Magi and to kill this new upstart king. The irony is, of course, that in his own drive for security, power, and control, Herod uses the same scripture that promises the coming of the Messiah to deliver his people from oppression and control. He's using the same verse to maintain that, to stop this new king. The same scripture that points the wise men towards God's coming in Bethlehem is the same scripture that Herod uses to get in the way of God. In Herod's hands, the scriptures are dangerous. In Herod's hands, the scriptures are a weapon. And I don't know about you, but before I actually started hanging around a faith community, I'd have agreed. The Bible seemed dangerous. I'd hear folks quote chapter and verse as if it were a weapon against others for the purpose of control. From slavery to terrorism to domestic abuse, the perpetrators often hid behind a Bible, justified their actions by a Bible. A friend of mine once said that many of us have become so suspicious of the Bible due to its negative use that it's become clumsy, foreign, awkward. Even though we come close to it every Sunday, the Bible is like a stranger that has been used to cause such suffering and pain that we hold it at arm's length on account of the risk. But I think people are hungry for meaning, though, for love, for belonging, for purpose. Faith communities can provide that. There have been studies that show that healthy faith communities can be extremely beneficial for mental health. One psychiatrist said that if there was a pill that was effective as faith communities to prevent suicide, people would be lining up for it. But still, people are nervous about church because churches haven't always been healthy and loving and accepting. And the word Bible conjures up images of King Herods armed with the Bible and verse, more than ready to cast judgments, to victimize and control, rather than pointing people in the direction of Bethlehem. It seems to point people away from it, towards Babylon. But here's the real twist in the story. Herod, the chief priests and scribes draw on their tradition, their history, and their Bible to point them to Bethlehem in order to kill Jesus and to stop God's coming into the world. Yet, it is the same scripture used to hurt that is the thing that eventually brings the seekers great joy. When they set out again, the star reappears. They again follow it, and it lights their way. The star, burning brightly, finally stops in the sky. It says, over where the child was. And it says the Magi are overwhelmed with joy. They are drawn to this place, and they open up the door, and they enter. They see this child, it says, in the arms of Mary, his mother. In spite of the humble scene, they kneel down and they pay him homage. And at this place they worship, opening their treasure chests and offering those famous gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. All gifts for the coronation of a king. All they can do is fall to their knees, offer their gifts, and give thanks and praise because they followed their intuition. And they've come face to face with the divine. And this is my favorite part. Remember how Herod plans to kill the Magi, how Herod plans to kill Jesus. An angel comes to the Magi in a dream and tells them Herod's plans, and they escape. So says the story, they leave for their country by another road. Or as the original King James Version says, they leave for their country by another way. The star drew them, and the story sends them. They find the source of their seeking, the one who drew them, who called them in the first place. On account of the story in the scriptures, they become a part of this story. And they go home another way. They go home different. They go home changed. And so here we are today, somehow gathered in worship, somehow gathered around this same scene, somehow the same scripture has been read, and the same ancient promises have been made. In spite of the sometimes sadly deserved reputation of the church as people who get in the way of God, in spite of the reputation of the Bible as something that hurts rather than heals, somehow here we are again, following the star, hoping and maybe finding that overwhelming joy of a face-to-face encounter with God, the kind that, like the Magi, sends us home a different way, sends us home changed. So maybe there's something to this story. Faith communities are at their best when they point those who seek to the place where Mother Mary cradles Christ in her arms. We are at our best when the old promises are spoken, heard, and then lived out in gratitude. We are at our best when people are able to come face to face with the living God and are able to share their gifts and their joys and even their hurts, and are sent out into the world to carry the light, to bring healing to the world, and to tell the story again. So friends, listen to these ancient promises. Come, kneel before the Holy One, and find this as a place to share your gifts. And you will return home, but you will return home a different way. That's the hope and the promise of the story, of the Bible, of God. You will all return a different way.